AITA for inviting someone else after my girlfriend mocked the dinner where I planned to propose. I'm Steven, 34, and by the time Tessa and I were coming up on 4 years together, I had become the guy who knew she hated cilantro, loved corner booths, and always checked the weather before she wore heels somewhere. I was her boyfriend, and in my head, maybe her future fiancé. The embarrassing part is that I thought being steady made me dependable. I didn't realize she had started calling it boring. Tessa wasn't always like that. That's the part people seem to skip when they tell stories about an ex. In the beginning, she loved that I remembered things. She'd smile when I ordered her tacos without cilantro before she had to remind the server. She used to tease me for having reminders in my phone for little things, but she said it with affection. "You're such a planner," she'd say, leaning into me in the booth. And I'd say, "That's how I keep you from eating leaves you hate." She would laugh, and it felt like we were building something real. Not loud, not cinematic. Real. I wasn't the guy who made every entrance feel like a show. I didn't turn every dinner into a performance. I liked quiet weekends, good food, reliable plans, and knowing that when I told someone I'd be there, I would actually be there. For a long time, Tessa seemed to like that about me. Then Damon became more visible in our friend group. He had technically been around for years, but he was one of those guys who floated in and out depending on who was hosting, who was newly single, and where the attention was. He was 33, loud in a charming way, and always seemed to know exactly when to clap someone on the shoulder, make a joke, or say something just suggestive enough to make people wonder if he meant it. At brunches, he told stories with his whole body. At BBQs, he took over the music. At trivia nights, he argued with the host like it was part of the entertainment. People rolled their eyes at him, but they also watched him. Damon knew that. He lived off it. At first, I didn't think much of how Tessa reacted to him. She laughed a little too hard sometimes, but people laugh at funny guys. She asked if he was coming to group events, but plenty of people did because Damon had a way of making dull nights less dull. I noticed, but I didn't want to become the guy who turned every glance into an accusation. The first time it bothered me enough to say something was after she canceled plans with me. We had been supposed to make dinner at my place. Nothing special, just pasta, wine, and the kind of night where neither of us had to perform for anyone. Around 5, she texted me. "Tessa, 5:14 p.m., I'm wiped. Can we rain check tonight? I think I just need a quiet night." I told her no problem. I put the chicken back in the fridge, changed into sweatpants, and tried not to take it personally. At 9:37, Graham sent me a social media story with no caption. Graham was my closest friend and had the social subtlety of a brick, so I knew he wasn't sending it for fun. It was Damon's story. A crowded bar. Music. Flashing lights. Tessa was in the corner of the frame, head tilted back laughing at something Damon had said, his hand resting on the back of her chair. I watched it twice, then put my phone face down. When Tessa called the next morning, I waited until she finished telling me about how much better she felt after resting. Then I said, "I saw Damon's story." She went quiet for half a second, not long enough to count as guilt if you were trying to be generous, but long enough for me to notice. "Oh," she said, "that was last minute. You told me you needed a quiet night." I did. Then Marley dragged me out. "I didn't ask why you went out," I said. "I asked why you lied." She sighed like I was making her file taxes. "Steven, come on. You're making this weird." That became one of her favorite lines. "You're making this weird. You're too intense. You're reading into things. You're acting like I need permission." I didn't want to control her. I wanted honesty. But every time I asked for it, she made the question sound like a leash. The joke started after that. At a casual dinner with the group, someone asked how Tessa and I kept track of plans because we were always the ones who showed up on time. Before I could answer, Tessa laughed and said, "Steven is basically a shared calendar with a pulse." A few people laughed. Damon laughed the loudest. I smiled because that's what you do when your girlfriend roasts you in public and everyone is watching. But I felt something tighten in my chest. Tessa touched my arm and said, "Relax, Steven." It was a joke. The word relax did more damage than the joke. It made me look like I was the problem for feeling the insult land. Later, in the car, I said, "That bothered me." She was scrolling on her phone, the blue light flashing across her face. "What did?" "The calendar comment." "Oh my God. It was nothing." It didn't feel like nothing. She locked her phone and looked at me like I had interrupted something more important. "This is what I mean. You take everything so seriously. I let it go that night, not because I agreed, but because I knew if I pushed, the whole argument would become about my tone, my timing, my insecurity. I told myself she was stressed. I told myself long relationships had rough patches. I told myself Damon was just a flashy distraction and Tessa would get tired of the act. Instead, she started measuring me against him. Damon once got everyone into some crowded rooftop event because he knew a guy at the door. Tessa talked about it for 2 days. Some people just know how to make a room feel awake, she said while we were eating takeout on my couch. I looked up from the container of noodles. Is that supposed to mean I put rooms to sleep? She smiled, but not kindly. Don't do that. Do what? Make it about you. I should have listened harder to that sentence. By then, everything generous I did was starting to become evidence against me. If I made a reservation, I was rigid. If I planned around her schedule, I was too available. If I checked whether she got home safe, I was hovering. If I didn't react when she canceled, I was cold. There was no right way to love someone who had already decided your love was a flaw. Our anniversary dinner was supposed to be simple, at least from the outside. I booked a private room at a restaurant Tessa loved, the kind with low lighting, soft music, and a staff that remembered if you had been there before. I paid a $350 deposit and chose a small menu because Tessa hated being handed 12 pages and feeling rushed. I asked for white tulips on the table because she once told me roses felt like a cliché and tulips felt like someone had listened. I also made a playlist from songs she used to play in the car. Not dramatic love songs. Just songs connected to normal days. The one she played on a rainy drive when we got stuck in traffic and ended up eating fries in the parking lot. The one she played while painting shelves we never finished. The one she kept replaying one summer until I pretended to hate it just to make her laugh. The restaurant emailed me a confirmation with the private room details, the deposit, and the cancellation policy. I printed it and put it in a folder with the menu. That sounds ridiculous now, but at the time I wanted everything handled. I didn't want the night to feel like logistics. I wanted it to feel like a door opening. The ring was real. I had bought it 6 weeks earlier after staring at it online for a month, and then visiting the store twice like the ring might change its mind. It wasn't huge. It was what I could afford without pretending to be someone I wasn't. It fit what Tessa used to say she liked. Simple, clean, not too flashy. But I hadn't decided for sure that I would propose that night. That mattered to me. I wasn't planning to trap her in a public spectacle. There were no hidden relatives, no spotlight, no applause waiting behind a curtain. I had written a short speech in a note on my phone and rewritten it probably 20 times. If the night felt right, I would ask. If she seemed distant or unsure, I would wait. I wanted her to choose me. I didn't want her cornered into it. Apparently, Tessa sensed I was planning something. Instead of asking me directly, she told Marley I was probably setting up some embarrassing proposal stunt. I didn't know that until later. At the time, all I knew was that Tessa had become sharper with me during the 2 weeks before our anniversary. She was on her phone more. She took calls in the other room. She smiled at messages and then went blank when I looked over. She started saying things like, I just feel like I don't know who I am outside this relationship, which would have been worth a serious conversation if she hadn't said it right before checking Damon's newest story. The night before the dinner, she came over with her arms crossed before she even sat down. I had made tea because she always complained my place was too cold, and I thought maybe we could have a quiet night before the anniversary. She didn't take the mug. She stood near the counter, hair still damp from a shower, phone in her hand like she might need to escape through it. We need to talk, she said. Everyone knows that sentence. It turns the air in the room heavy. I said, okay. She looked annoyed that I didn't panic. I can't keep pretending this is enough for me. Us, this routine. You, me, dinner plans, calendar invites, checking the weather. It's all so, she waved her hand, searching for a word that wouldn't sound cruel and landing on one anyway. Predictable. I didn't answer immediately. I could hear the refrigerator humming. I remember that because my brain grabbed onto the dumbest detail instead of the sentence that had just cut me open. She continued, Damon invited me to a rooftop thing tonight. And before you make that face, it's not about him. I'm not making a face. You are. You're doing the quiet judgment thing. I took a breath. Tessa, our anniversary dinner is tomorrow. That's exactly the problem. I don't want another quiet dinner where we pretend that comfortable is the same as alive. I stared at her. I wanted to argue. I wanted to remind her of every night she had called me from her car because she was overwhelmed. Every time I had shown up, every time stability had been the thing she reached for when the world felt too loud. Instead, I asked one question. Are you ending this? She swallowed. For the first time that night, she looked uncertain. Then her phone buzzed. She glanced down. Her expression changed, just slightly, like the answer had come from the screen. Yeah, she said. I think I am. I nodded once. She blinked. That's it. What else should there be? I don't know. Something. You're just going to stand there. You ended the relationship. I need space. Maybe space will make you less intense. That did it. Not enough to make me yell. Enough to freeze whatever part of me still wanted to plead. I said, you don't get to call me a cage just because someone else opened a window. Her face flushed. That's not fair. Neither was lying to me for weeks. She looked toward the door. I'm not doing this. I know. I stepped aside. Then I'll respect that. She waited for me to stop her. I could see it. Her hand hovered near her purse. Her eyes kept flicking to mine, waiting for the version of me she had probably prepared for, the desperate one, the one who would ask what he did wrong and promise to change overnight. I didn't give her that man. She left. 10 minutes later, Damon posted a story from the rooftop. I didn't even have to look for Tessa. She appeared in the background, laughing with a drink in her hand, wearing the earrings I had given her on her last birthday. I sat on my couch for almost an hour without moving. Then I stood up, took the ring box out of the drawer, and put it in the inside pocket of a jacket I wasn't going to wear anymore. The next morning, I moved like someone following instructions from a colder version of himself. I called the restaurant first. The manager was kind. She remembered my booking because of the tulips and the private room. I told her the dinner was still happening, but it would no longer be an anniversary dinner. I asked to change the table count and remove anything that was couple-specific. She paused and said, I'm sorry. Don't be. I said, just change the name. I opened the shared calendar and renamed the event from Anniversary Dinner to For the Ones Who Show Up. Then I removed Tessa. The tiny notification popped up. Tessa has been removed from this event. It felt petty. It also felt clean. I removed her from the shared album we had been adding to for years because I couldn't keep seeing her face every time my phone tried to show me memories. I canceled a travel inquiry I had started for a weekend trip she had mentioned wanting. I went through my cabinets and collected her tea, her sweatshirt, the phone charger she always forgot, the paperback she had left on my nightstand, and the little bottle of nail polish she kept in my bathroom drawer. I put everything in one box. Her apartment key went into a small envelope. I taped it shut and wrote her name on it. Not Tess. Not the nickname I used when things were good. Tessa. I didn't post anything. I didn't call her family. I didn't send long messages. I didn't ask Damon what he thought he was doing. I kept my hands clean, or at least clean enough. Graham came by that afternoon with coffee and the expression of a man prepared to stop me from committing emotional arson. He looked at the box by the door and said, Good. Practical. I'm not feeling practical. I figured. I handed him my phone and showed him the renamed reservation. He read it and raised an eyebrow. For the ones who show up. Too much. It's a little dramatic. She dumped me for a rooftop party the night before I was going to maybe propose. I didn't say it wasn't earned. I sat across from him at the kitchen table. I want her to know what she threw away. Graham stirred his coffee even though he drinks it black. You're allowed to be angry. You're not allowed to be stupid. I'm not going to do anything stupid. You say that now, but you've got the deadcom thing going. That's when men start sending essays and screenshots to 20 people. I have screenshots. You will, he said. And when you do, screenshot first. Don't answer angry. I gave him a tired look. He leaned forward. Don't throw mud, Stephen. Put the receipts on the table and let people read. That sentence stayed with me. The first receipt came from Marley. Marley was Tessa's best friend, which meant I did not expect loyalty from her and would not have blamed her for staying out of it. She called around noon from her car. I knew she was in her car because I could hear the faint clicking of her turn signal and the muffled sound of traffic through the speaker. Hey, she said awkwardly. Hey, I know I'm probably the last person you want to talk to. You're not on the list yet. She laughed once, but it died fast. I'm calling because I'm uncomfortable with what's being said. I closed my eyes. What is being said? Marley hesitated. Tessa told people you were planning some public proposal stunt to pressure her. She said she felt trapped and had to get out before you made a scene. I stared at the printed restaurant folder on my counter. Private room. 3 people on staff. No audience. No trap. That's not true, I said. I know. You know? She showed me the reservation email when she saw it on your laptop last week. It said private room. She knew. That hit harder than I expected. It meant she hadn't misunderstood. She had edited reality. Marley took a breath. There's more. Of course there is. She's been saying you're clingy, controlling, that you were going to make her look bad if she said no. And she keeps saying, Marley stopped. Say it. She keeps saying you're safe enough to come back to if Damon gets boring. I thought you deserved to know. For a few seconds, I couldn't speak. Safe enough to come back to. Not loved. Not missed. Not respected. Safe enough. Why are you telling me? I asked. Because I know she's my best friend, Marley said quietly. But she's lying about you, and I'm not okay with that. I believed the discomfort in her voice. Marley had always been honest in the way people are when they don't enjoy conflict, but enjoy hypocrisy even less. Do you have messages? I asked. She said some of it out loud. Some of it is in texts. I'm not asking you to betray her. She already did that part. A minute later, screenshots appeared. Tessa, 10:42 p.m. I feel like Steven is about to do some big proposal thing, and I can't breathe. Marley, 10:44 p.m. Didn't you say it was a private room? Tessa, 10:45 p.m. That's not the point. It's still pressure. Tessa, 10:48 p.m. Damon gets it. He says someone like me shouldn't settle for predictable. Another one came through. Tessa, 11:03 p.m. Steven is safe though. Like if this Damon thing gets boring, I know Steven would still answer. I read that one 3 times, then set my phone down gently because I didn't trust my hand. Graham texted while I was still staring at the screen. Graham, 12:19 p.m. Don't answer angry. Screenshot first. I almost laughed. Almost. Then Graham sent me 2 screenshots of his own. Apparently, Damon had been messaging a guy in the group named Colin, who was not close enough to be loyal to Damon and not smart enough to stay out of drama. Damon, 1:12 a.m. Tessa's fun, but it's not like that. Colin, 1:13 a.m. She thinks it is LOL. Damon, 1:14 a.m. That's on her. I never promised anything. Another screenshot from earlier that evening. Damon, 8:31 p.m. If I bring Tessa, Natalie will notice. She gets weird when other girls are around me. Colin, 8:32 p.m. So you're using Tessa as bait? Damon, 8:33 p.m. Relax. People are making this bigger than it is. There it was. The whole stupid mess, smaller and uglier than heartbreak usually wants to be. Tessa had not left because she had a brave, honest realization about our future. She left because Damon dangled attention, called my stability predictable, and gave her a stage. She built a false story around me so she could chase him without looking selfish. And Damon, the man who made rooms feel awake, had apparently invited her because he wanted another woman to look. I didn't expose it right away. I wanted to. I sat with my thumb over the group chat more than once, ready to drop every screenshot like a brick through glass. But Graham's voice kept playing in my head. Don't throw mud. Put the receipts on the table and let people read. So I waited. The dinner was already paid for in part. The cancellation policy meant I would lose most of the deposit if I called it off that late. More than that, I didn't want the night to become a grave marker for the relationship. Tessa had already decided I was predictable. Fine. I would do the most predictable thing in the world. Show up for the people who showed up for me. I invited Graham first. Then Marley, after making it very clear I was not using her to make Tessa jealous. This isn't a replacement dinner, I told her over the phone. It's a reality check for me. I get that, she said. And for what it's worth, I'm sorry. I invited a few mutual friends too, including 2 who had reached out with awkward "hope you're okay" messages and one who had already heard Tessa's version but seemed unsure about it. I didn't mention the ring. I didn't mention Damon. The invitation was simple. Dinner tonight. Private room. No speeches unless someone gets weird. I'd rather not waste the reservation. Graham replied first. Graham, 2:04 p.m. I'll be there. Also, no speeches unless someone gets weird is absolutely a speech warning. Marley replied with a simple heart, then immediately followed it with, Marley, 2:07 p.m. Sorry. Wrong vibe. I mean, yes, I'll come. I smiled despite myself. Before I left for the restaurant, I opened the drawer again and looked at the ring box. For one ugly second, I considered bringing it just so Tessa could somehow learn exactly what she had lost. Then I pictured myself sitting at dinner with a ring in my pocket like a man still waiting for the ghost of her to choose him. I put it back. The private room looked exactly the way I had planned it. That was the worst part. The tulips were there, white and clean in low glass vases. The corner table had been arranged with soft candles. The playlist was already running quietly when I walked in, and the first song was one Tessa used to hum off-key in my passenger seat. The manager saw my face and offered to change the music. I almost said yes. Then I said, no, leave it. Not because I wanted to torture myself. Because I was tired of cutting pieces of my life away just because Tessa had touched them. Graham arrived first. He glanced around, took in the flowers, the room, the small printed menus, and gave me a look that was softer than his usual bluntness. This is nice, he said. It was supposed to be. He nodded once and didn't push. The others came in slowly. Marley looked like she wanted to apologize every time she made eye contact with me. So eventually I pulled her aside and said, "You don't have to keep wearing that face." She exhaled. "I feel guilty. You didn't dump me." "No," but I watched her get meaner and kept thinking she'd stop. I didn't know what to say to that, so I told the truth. Me too. Dinner was strange at first. Everyone moved carefully around the empty shape of what the night had been supposed to be. Then Graham raised his glass and said, "To people who show up," and to Stephen not making a speech even though he clearly wants to. People laughed. The room loosened. We ate. We talked about normal things. Bad movies. Someone's dog eating a sock. A terrible first date one of the guys had survived. Marley spilled water and cursed under her breath, then laughed when the server brought her extra napkins like it was a medical emergency. For almost an hour, I felt something close to okay. People posted harmless stories. A shot of the table. The tulips. Graham pretending to study the wine list upside down. The dessert even had "for the ones who show up" written in chocolate on the plate. The restaurant had asked if I wanted the new event name used anywhere, and I had said sure. I didn't post anything. I didn't need to. Tessa saw it anyway. The first text came while dessert was being served. "Tessa, 8:41 p.m. Are you serious?" I looked at the screen, then put it face down. "Tessa, 8:42 p.m. You kept the reservation?" "Tessa, 8:43 p.m. Stephen, answer me." "Tessa, 8:46 p.m. Those are my flowers." That one made Graham glance at me because my phone kept lighting up. "Her?" he asked. "Yeah." "Don't answer angry." "I'm not answering at all." "Growth," he said, and took a bite of dessert. Then Tessa called. I declined it. She called again. I declined again. Then Marley's phone buzzed, and her face tightened. "What?" I asked. Marley looked at her screen. Damon posted with Natalie. The room got very quiet in that nosy way people pretend isn't nosy. Marley turned her phone slightly, so I could see. Damon's story showed him at some after-party, arms slung around a woman I assumed was Natalie. He was grinning into the camera. Tessa was nowhere in sight. A second message came through on Marley's phone, from Tessa. "Tessa, 8:52 p.m. He said people are making it bigger than it is. Can you believe that?" Marley closed her eyes. "Oh, Tessa." I felt something mean try to rise in me. Not happiness exactly. More like the bitter satisfaction of watching someone trip over the rake they placed in your path. Then my phone buzzed again. "Tessa, 8:55 p.m. I'm outside." I looked toward the door. Graham said, "Absolutely not. I'm not hiding from her. You're not giving her a scene either. I'll handle it." He stood with me anyway. Tessa was near the entrance, arms wrapped around herself, hair windblown, eyes bright in that way that meant she had either been crying or was furious enough to look like it. Maybe both. She looked past me and saw the private room through the open door. The flowers. The people. Marley at the edge of the table, looking miserable. Tessa's face changed. "You replaced me that fast?" she said. I didn't raise my voice. No. I stopped saving a seat for someone who walked away from the table. Her jaw tightened. "You did this to humiliate me. You dumped me. I believed you. You knew I would see it. I didn't post anything. You invited my best friend. Your best friend told me the truth when you started lying about me. That landed." Her eyes flicked to Marley again. Tessa lowered her voice. "You don't know what I've been going through. I know what you said. I felt trapped, Stephen. You felt tempted. There's a difference. She flinched like I had slapped the word onto her. You're being cruel, she said. I'm being clear. She took a step closer. Graham shifted beside me, not threatening, just present. Tessa noticed and scoffed. Of course you brought backup. I almost laughed at that. Funny choice of word. Her face went pale enough that I knew she knew exactly what Marley had sent me. I didn't mean it like that, she said quickly. Safe enough to come back to if Damon gets boring? Graham made a small sound through his nose. Tessa's eyes filled with panic. That was private. So was our relationship, until you started telling people I was controlling and planning to trap you with a public proposal. Her mouth opened, then closed. For once, she didn't have a quick line ready. Then the group chat started going off. I didn't know it until Marley showed me, but Tessa had already posted in the main friend chat before arriving. She wrote a long message about how I was punishing her for choosing herself, how I had turned our anniversary dinner into a public humiliation, how she had been afraid to leave because I made everything intense. People were reacting with little shocked emojis. A few had sent what the hell, and is this true? Someone tagged me. There it was. My line. I stepped away from Tessa, opened the chat, and typed one message. Since my name is being used, here's the part Tessa left out. I attached only what mattered. Not every ugly message. Not every screenshot that would make her look stupid for sport. Just the short timeline. Yesterday, 5:14 p.m., Tessa ended the relationship after telling me Damon invited her out, and I was too predictable. Yesterday, 9:37 p.m., Damon posted from the rooftop party with Tessa there. Screenshot. Tessa telling Marley she knew the dinner was private, but calling it pressure anyway. Screenshot. Tessa calling me safe enough to come back to if Damon got boring. Screenshot. Damon saying Tessa was fun, but not serious. Screenshot. Damon saying he invited Tessa because he wanted Natalie to notice. Then I added one final line. I didn't trap anyone. She ended the relationship. I stopped funding the fantasy that she could leave and still be celebrated. I hit send. The restaurant entrance felt silent, even though I could hear dishes clinking behind me and low music from the private room. Tessa stared at her phone. Her hands were shaking. In the chat, the reaction stopped. Then Colin, proving again that he should never be trusted with subtlety, wrote. Colin, 9:07 p.m. Wait, so she ended a 4-year relationship over a guy who never even claimed her? Someone else wrote. Nina, 9:08 p.m. Tessa, you told us the proposal thing was public. Another message. Aaron, 9:08 p.m. Damon, what the hell, man? Damon appeared almost immediately, which told me he had been watching. Damon, 9:09 p.m. I never told Tessa we were together. People are making this bigger than it is. That did more damage to Tessa than anything I could have said. She looked like the floor had moved under her. I thought she began, then stopped. Marley came out then. Her face was sad, but there was steel in it. Tessa, she said softly. You didn't lose Steven because he was boring. You lost him because you thought he didn't have a limit. Tessa's eyes snapped to her. You're supposed to be my best friend. I tried to be, Marley said. You wanted a witness, not a friend. For a second, I thought Tessa might yell. Instead, her face crumpled in a way that would have broken me a month earlier. I made a mistake, she said, looking at me. Can we just talk like adults? We are. No, I mean alone. I shook my head. There's nothing private left to clarify. Her voice dropped. Damon made me feel wanted. I hated that some small part of me still understood the wound underneath that sentence. I hated more that she had used my love as padding while she chased someone else's attention. I wanted you, I said. You called it boring. She wiped at her cheek quickly, angry at the tear for existing. I didn't think you'd actually cut me off. That was the most honest thing she said all night. I know, I said. I walked back into the private room before the scene could become a circus. I had already said what I needed to say. Staying outside to watch her unravel would have felt good for maybe 30 seconds and rotten for much longer. When I sat down, nobody pretended not to know what had happened. Phones were on the table. Faces were tense. Graham slid my water closer to me like hydration might fix betrayal. You good? He asked. No. Fair. I paid my portion of the bill even though the deposit had come from me. A couple of friends tried to cover more, but I waved them off. I thanked everyone who had come. Then I left with Graham before the dessert plates had even been cleared. In the parking lot, the night air felt colder than it should have. Graham walked beside me without speaking for a while. Finally, he said, "You handled that better than I would have. I wanted to be worse. I know. I might still be petty enough to regret not bringing the ring, just to make a point." Graham stopped walking and looked at me. "No, you don't." I let out a breath. "No, I don't." The next morning, Tessa started texting again. Tessa, 7:18 a.m. I couldn't sleep. Tessa, 7:22 a.m. I'm sorry for what I said. Tessa, 7:31 a.m. I was confused and Damon got in my head. Tessa, 7:44 a.m. Please don't throw away almost 4 years over one mistake. One mistake. That was another little rewrite. One mistake sounded like a bad kiss at a party or a drunk argument. This had been weeks of small lies, public jokes, private disrespect, and a breakup time so she could run toward a man who had never even promised her a place to land. I waited until I had eaten breakfast and taken a shower before answering. Graham's warning had become a rule in my head. Don't answer angry. Stephen, 9:06 a.m. I packed your things. I'll have them dropped off today. Your key is in an envelope in the box. She replied immediately. Tessa, 9:07 a.m. That's it? Stephen, 9:09 a.m. Yes. Tessa, 9:10 a.m. Stephen, please. Stephen, 9:12 a.m. You wanted a life without me in it. I'm respecting that. Then I blocked her. Not because I was healed. I wasn't. Blocking her didn't make the apartment feel less quiet. It didn't stop my eyes from going to the drawer where the ring had been. It didn't erase the muscle memory of wanting to send her a photo of something funny or ask if she got home safe. It just stopped me from volunteering to be the soft place she landed after using me as the thing she could safely leave. I had her box delivered through a neutral drop-off. No final porch conversation. No tearful exchange. No last hug that would confuse my body into thinking comfort meant repair. Her things went back to her. Her key went with them. That was the end of the practical parts. The social parts took longer. A few friends apologized. Real apologies, not the soft kind where people apologize that things got messy because naming the mess would make them responsible. Nina called and said, "I should have asked you before believing it." I appreciated that. Erin texted. I repeated some stuff she said. "I'm sorry. That was weak." I appreciated that more. Others went quiet. Those were the people who had liked Tessa's dramatic version because it let them enjoy the story without having to question the storyteller. When the truth came out, they didn't apologize. They just disappeared into silence, which told me enough. Damon tried to laugh the whole thing off for a few days. He wrote in a smaller chat, "People are acting like I broke up a marriage. We were just hanging out." Colin, suddenly useful, replied, "Bro, you used her to make Natalie jealous and then acted shocked when it exploded." Damon stopped replying after that. He didn't become some grand villain. He just became what he had probably always been, a guy people still invited sometimes, but trusted a little less. The room didn't revolve around him as easily after everyone saw how quickly he ran from consequences. Marley and I did not become some dramatic new thing. I want that clear because people love turning every betrayal into a replacement romance. She was Tessa's friend, then she became someone who told the truth when it cost her. That was enough. We stayed friendly, but there was no movie ending where I walked out with the best friend and everyone clapped. There was just me, my quieter apartment, and a ring I returned 2 weeks later. The woman at the jewelry store recognized me from when I bought it. She didn't ask questions. She just processed the return with the kind of gentle efficiency that made me wonder how many men had stood at that counter with the same empty look. When she handed me the receipt, she said, "I hope your next chapter is kinder." I nodded because I didn't trust myself to answer without sounding pathetic. About a month after the dinner, the restaurant called. Because I had kept the booking and changed the guest count, there was still a small credit left on the account from one of the adjusted add-ons. I had forgotten about it. For a second, I thought about ignoring it. Then I remembered what I had told the manager the night of the dinner. Leave the music. I was tired of losing things just because they had once been attached to Tessa. So I used the credit on a quiet meal with Graham and 2 friends who had never needed screenshots to treat me fairly. No tulips. No playlist. No hidden ring. Just a table, decent food, and people who didn't make loyalty feel like a performance. Halfway through dinner, Graham lifted his glass and said, "To boring men with standards." I laughed for real that time. "I'm not boring," I said. "No," he said. "You're consistent. People with chaos addictions confuse the two. I thought about arguing because it sounded like something he had practiced in the car. But he was right. For nearly 4 years, I had mistaken being chosen repeatedly for being loved properly. I had thought that if I kept showing up, kept listening, kept being steady, the relationship would stay safe. I didn't understand that some people don't see steady as safe. They see it as a shelf. A place to put someone until they want to pick them back up. Tessa wanted excitement. She got a rooftop party, a man who shrugged when the bill came due, and a friend group that finally saw the story she tried to bury. I didn't get the proposal night I planned. I didn't get the future I had quietly imagined. I did get one clean ending, and I held on to it. I was petty. I know that. Renaming the dinner was petty. Letting the story stay up was petty. Sending the receipts to the group chat was not saintly, no matter how calmly I did it. But I won't apologize for telling the truth after being lied about. I won't apologize for removing someone from plans she chose to leave. And I will never again confuse being someone's backup plan with being patient. She wanted excitement. I gave her consequences. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.